Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
Today, it is March 24th. Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch. I'm Catherine White, your host, bringing you the guests, the issues, the action. We amplify the voice of the grassroots to get things done. And you know us, to make politics fun. And today, I'm so excited to welcome our guests here. It's such a piece of history today we're talking about in Virginia on so many levels. We have Pastor Michelle here, a friend of the Power Lunch that's also right now the president of the Loudoun County NAACP. Welcome, Pastor Michelle. Let's say hi to you. Starting with you because of our topic today and the history and the author that we'll introduce next. You lived it. You've been fighting for this, and to have your voice in the room is just really super today. So let me just say, how are you feeling? Are you woke?
You know what? It's amazing. Every day that I wake up Black, I'm woke, and more woke than I probably want to be. Right? To the reality of this ever-present issue of hate, and in particular in Loudoun County, the uptick of hate in this county. I lived through several different things, but most recently, our African-American burial ground, historic African-American burial ground was desecrated. And at first glance, you would probably, some people would say, oh, it's a hoax, right? Hate is always a hoax.
Or the wind. I heard it could be the wind.
Or the wind.
Or it could be the wind. Yes.
Oh, right. Or something else, right? But the issue is desecration happens or happened in this case at several different locations. It wasn't just my son's memorial. It wasn't the fact that they dismantled the memorial. It was the fact that they actually they busted rocks. They actually would, shatter the rocks on the graves. That is no animal, and that's not the wind.
And it's
breaking up rocks.
No, and I'm glad you're here today, and just wanted to bring you up. First of all, you look great. The pearls look good. We will circle back with that conversation, but we're grateful to have you in the room, and we have so much to talk about. We just appreciate you lending your voice to this, because we know, again, you're living it. So thank you so much, Pastor, for being here. Next up, Meredith Weisel, the DC Regional Director of the Anti-Defamation League. Welcome, Meredith. I know it's a busy day for you today. How are you feeling? Are you woke?
It's an interesting day. I will say that. I really appreciate being on here with everybody to talk about such an important topic. Yes. We just, I say it's an interesting day because just yesterday we released our national data and our local data on our audit of anti-Semitic incidents. And the numbers, as somebody who works in the anti-hate space, were quite jarring, even for me. So I'm feeling, the weather is kind of mirroring how I'm feeling a little bit today.
I feel like you want to grab your coffee and blanket and hide underneath the covers for a while. I get it. But we're shining a light with you on the underbelly. We have, I'm so excited to have you here as well. Thank you for joining us today. And next up, we will have on, and this is first of all, this is what the pinnacle of today, where we really started with Margaret Edds. You are the journalist, author of this wonderful book, What the Eyes Can't See, Ralph Northam, Black Resolve, and a Racial Reckoning in Virginia. And talk about living that. A lot of us in activism remember that day when the announcement came about the blackface photograph, and you write this story about it. And so we're so excited to have you on. With that said, welcome.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I'm looking forward to talking with everyone about It's amazing time in Virginia history.
Yeah, it is true. And I love that you have yellow on. You mirror the idea of us and your what you wore, and bringing some sunlight into this conversation, because it's, I mean, goodness, it is a piece of history. And that we, like I said with Pastor Michelle, have lived and then have seen. We were thinking progress, maybe, and then some things have been rolled back. But we're so interested to hear your story and about your book. So thank you for being here. We so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's so exciting. It was really exciting to talk to the author. I mean, I could, many of us had obviously in Virginia, remember that time. So it would be interesting. So save your questions and your thoughts for the chat. And in fact, speaking of the chat, you know that we are a friendly community. We use the chat to communicate with each other. We remind people every week, be nice, don't be nasty. Nastiness gets you booted. The stair up there, she's in Colorado, but she has her ski boots still on. So we appreciate you guys being in the room. Today, Michelle McKinney isn't here. She's usually our chat liaison. So we will definitely, if you have any questions, you can just pitch them over to Stair or Robin. And remember to stick around for the after chat at 1 o'clock. That's where it's happened. We sort of get all comfortable in our jammies, and we're able to unmute and share and talk. And guess what? The author is going to stay with us today. So please stay for the after chat and support the show. Become a patron. I want to say thank you to our patron, Pearl from California, girl. Thank you. Pearl's back. She even upped her amount of the way she supports the show. So thank you. That really is super. All right. So with that said, let me take a drink of some. Today I didn't put coffee in it. I actually put some like Power Red Bull in here because I ran out of coffee. So good luck with that for me. Bringing up co-host Fennell Norton. We love to chitty chat. Let's get this party started for now. And I want to say a few things. Come on up. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, you're looking good. It's always good to see you.
Good to see you too, Catherine.
Yeah. Well, I want to say a few things. I know we can do our power chat quickly, but I was interested in some good news. Celebration of the Affordable Care Act, 13th anniversary. Biden says, let's finish the job. It was never perfect, but, we got there. On the big news, there's some other news. And one thing I wanted to also talk about in Virginia news was this still battle about parental rights. And we saw that on the floor yesterday with the bill they're trying to pass. And they kept talking, Pastor Michelle, about Loudon. And it was loud and loud. And we know in Virginia that when Youngkin won and got control of that narrative, now it's a nationwide rollout of how they're empowering this toxic bill that really kind of undermines teachers and has a lot of, book banning that goes along with it. So I don't know if you caught some of that footage yesterday.
Yeah, I did. And I, as we're talking about the book today that we're going to be discussing What the Eyes Can't See, I'm thinking that they probably would ban that too. But we'll keep working. But I know there's two other pieces of news that I want to talk about, and you probably know about this, and that is that Youngkin is requiring convicted felons to apply for voting rights. And so that is going to hurt. And I think earlier on, he was bragging that he had 3,500 convicted felons that he'd given rights back to, but now the number is something like 800. Now they have. Yeah. So
restoration of rights we fought so hard for, and then that was the Republican governor McDonnell, and then Ralph Northam extended it even further. And now the interesting thing is Youngkin is viewing as that the inmates have to the former inmates, the now released, serve their time, have to apply, and then he gets to decide who is worthy based on their individual story.
Yeah. So that's just not going to go over well. So we just have so much to do, but we should not be discouraged. And so there's one thing before we go to TikTok that I know you don't want to talk about, because we don't want to give it any space, but we have to give it just a little.
Okay.
And that is the Trump potential indictment. Oh, and it's been all over the news. We're all sick of hearing it, but we know that people are going to be talking about it. So I just wanted everybody to know that we're going to have some talking points that you can use so that if you're talking to family and friends, you'll be able to use messaging that comes from a not shingle scenario that's been tested that should be effective in your conversations. And so we're going to put that out there for everyone to be able to have the best conversations that they can.
What are some of the words? Are they crook, criminal, felon, fraud, or what are they?
So it's not that. So the wording will be something like, we all deserve to have leaders who follow the law and who are honorable. And so the most important thing is that this grand jury is people like you and me. And so they'll look at the evidence and decide what's appropriate. And that's what the law does.
Yeah, well, it is. I think, like I was saying, I feel like it's such a distraction, the master of distraction. Well, things are really serious going on. I mean, I wish all the senators would run down and have a hearing on women and girls losing their right in this country. Every day, the attack on women and the attack on teachers. Instead, they're running down there to talk about TikTok to get their little talk. And both sides are talking about this geopolitical. We're just stuck in this war with, with China, and meaning the war of words and power. And they're, this is all they're talking about down there. And you're thinking to yourself, my gosh, are you paying attention what's happening in this country, state to state, when we talk about rights and freedom of speech? And they're going after freedom of speech, and they look like a bunch of grandpas that don't know how to use a remote control. You know what I mean? Talking about TikTok.
That's exactly right. And I'll say this before I go. We talked about TikTok last week, women who TikTok, and we're going to keep on TikToking because we know that is how the Democrats get their message out. That is a place where we go and we know people are listening, and we know that we move voters, and we know we provide information. So this is just another distraction. I think we're going to be fine. But the point is that we stay focused.
Yes.
We keep our heads down. So that's what we're doing.
I was calling legislators yesterday on the parental rights bill, because just so you know, I called Bobby Scott's office, and because I'm like, you need to push back harder on this narrative that they're setting up. And they keep talking about Loudon, but they aren't telling the correct story, right? Then I'm calling Senator Warner's office about the ban on TikTok. I'm like, are you really protecting our data and rights? Cambridge Analytica, hello. And, the kind of hearing it was just, it was another master in distraction. I think we talk about our freedom of speech and that we should be very, very careful when our government wants to take that freedom away under protecting us, like they're trying to protect the children, So that's my speech for the day. I'm feeling quite pumped up with my Red Bull. Okay, sorry about that. Good. Okay, for now.
Stay with it. Yeah. Stay with it. They can't deter us.
Okay, good. Okay, so I am so excited for now for your segment with the author. Let's get to the grassroots update with Louisa Borowski. Oh, we have missed her. She's been on sabbatical, and she's now back with, I love the knitted sweater. Mom knitted it. That's one. The knitted scarf. I love it.
Yeah, it's great to be back. I wouldn't call it sabbatical. I was working, but I had a great time. I was just in Jordan in the Middle East, and I really have a lot of fantastic things to say about that experience. But today we're going to focus on the Virginia Grassroots Coalition, and we are transitioning. We're transitioning from the legislative session into elections. And one of the big ones that's coming up, as we all know, this is special election year in Virginia. We've got a special election on March 28th for Jennifer McClellan's state Senate seat. Lamont Bagby is running for it. And I'm going to put all of the info you need, both about if you are in that district, please, please, please vote. But also if you are interested in helping out, there are lots of links for canvassing, for poll greeting, etc. So please help us make sure that we've got people out at the polls. This is a state Senate seat that we want to hold. Absolutely. It is pretty Democratic, but it's always good to show that Democrats vote. So let's make sure we are at the polls en masse on March 28th. I also want to share that we are starting to track the races for this year on the Virginia Grassroots Coalition website. So I'm going to put that in the chat as well. Dennis has been doing a fantastic job of looking for the competitive races. So they're going to be, as we know, lots and lots of races this year. What we're trying to do is really narrow it down to which are the most competitive, which are the ones that we have the opportunity to flip, which are the ones that we have that are close and we really need to hold. And then there are a lot of open seats, a lot more than I think we expected. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Senate seats today, but you can find more information on the website. Next week, I'll talk about the House seats. But one of the Senate seats to watch for is SD 16. And I'm sharing the new numbers. So remember, we now have new district numbers for all of these districts, which of course makes it that much more confusing. So SD 16 is an opportunity flip seat for us. It was redistricted from a Republican seat to be a 6.3 plus Democrat seat. Van Valkenburg, who is one of our delegates, is running for that seat. And so I just love how we're starting to see some of our electeds from 2017 and 2019 moving up and running from, moving from delegate to Senate. And it's really exciting. So want to encourage people to start to get involved in some of these races. So that's State Senate 16. And then we've got Senate District 17. That's going to be an open seat. Clint Jenkins, who you might also recognize the name of, will be running for that seat. It is a little bit more of a Republican seat. It's districted now as a 5.2 Republican. But as you know, we just flipped a 5 Republican seat in Virginia Beach, which is around where this is located. So we should do that again. So please check out Clint's race. Then we've got Senate District 22, which is a hold seat. Aaron Rouse, as you know, just won the special election, but now he's going to have to run in a different district because of redistricting. He will be running in Senate District 22. It will be a Democratic hold seat, but we want to make sure Aaron gets reelected. Senate District 24 is also a hold seat. Monty Mason currently holds that seat, but it's been redistricted to be a 3.5R. So we need to get down there and make sure that we are helping hold that seat for Democrats. Senate District 27 is an open seat with multiple candidates. It is going to be harder. It is an 8.5 Republican district. But what we are hoping is that because Virginia will be the only game in town again this year, there will be a lot of support coming from out of the state. That gives us as the grassroots the opportunity to push a little further to those races that the Democratic Party will say, that's not possible. I think we see these as absolutely possible, and we need to get on these races ASAP. So that is Senate District 27. And we've also got Senate District 30, which is an open seat. Danica Rome is running for it. It is Democratic, but slightly Democratic. So we should definitely get behind Danica to make sure she wins that open seat. And then finally, Senate District 31, also an open seat with multiple candidates. It's virtually even, and it's out in Loudoun County. So that is one of those seats that we would like to claim. Jill Vogel used to hold this seat, but it is now open. It is up for grabs, and we want to win that seat. So please start to look at those candidates, get involved. And if you are hosting any events for these candidates, I encourage you to put that information in the chat.
Oh, it's so much fun. We're there, but there's so many open seats. Like you said, when I was looking at some of the House districts, especially out in the rural areas, Southwest, we need to get some people in those seats, because what we've learned is we need to run everywhere. And especially in the rural areas, we need to run. We need to be present, because otherwise we really will have a hard time winning statewide. So
absolutely. I mean, Democrats across our state should feel like they have the opportunity to be heard, and that their values can be represented. And if nobody is running on their ticket, they don't feel that way. So we need to get behind those candidates who are willing to step up and run in those tough seats.
Yeah, we need to. We talk about it all the time, and we will definitely, the grassroots, like what we did, is we definitely help, just like what you said, all the seats that maybe the party won't pay attention to as much. I remember back in the day when we supported 17, that's our story. We supported everybody. We flipped 16, and then of course it went back down to 15, but the party was, other people were really looking at it, maybe a 4 to 8 flip. we helped everybody, and it showed. And I think we have to keep that mentality up. So thank you, Louisa, for that report. Put in the chat if you are having an event. I know that there's one this weekend. Stare is hosting, I'm pretty sure, at her house with the boats. Should be some good weather. So Stare, go ahead and put that invite in there. I'll just give you a special shout out for that event for Ben Lynchfield, that's running for Senate. And all candidates on this call are invited to Stare's house, but she says you do have to buy a ticket. Okay. So with that up, I want to get to our show today.
Fairfax candidates. We're
Fairfax candidates. Yes, there you are.
Thank you. I hope to see you all. I'm trying to make something very special on Sunday. Thank you.
Good. And yes, and you are very special. So we're going to make sure that it all comes together. So let's get to the show. A lot to talk about with this big topic, battling bigotry, anti-Semitism, racism, and hatred. I want to welcome into the conversation again, Meredith Weisel, DC Regional Director of the Anti-Defamation League. Welcome again. Good to see you.
Thank you.
You saw it. We definitely love to run through a lot of stuff on our mind, and then we get to it. So I want to start us off in this conversation. You know, what we've recognized in our scope in this room, our grassroots work, that, you know, the rise of Trump and then the rise of the bigotry and the racial violence, and you know, this just seems to be a rise, but it's probably not new to groups like yours and groups in this room. Like Robin likes to state hate was invented overnight. So can you start us off first about telling us a bit about the ADL and your work to document and fight anti-Semitism, racism, and hatred over the last 100 years?
Happy to. Thank you. And I just want to be very clear at the front that ADL is also a 501c3, and we are nonpartisan. We work in a bipartisan manner. Anybody who is willing to step up and fight hate. So I think that's just a little disclaimer I just want to give at the beginning.
It's all good. I just let you know, we're an LLC. We're not affiliated. We're grassroots with anybody, but we just fight for people who fight for our values. So you know,
absolutely,
that's what we do. So
as I said, there's a lot of room. Unfortunately, there's a lot of hate and room for people to work on this. And so ADL has been around since 1913, so now 110 years, and we've been a leading anti-hate organization. And I say anti-hate because our mission is about combating anti-Semitism. We call fighting the defamation of the Jewish people, and that is not and securing justice and fair treatment for all, because we really do believe you can't fight one form of hate without fighting all forms of hate. And hate is interrelated in many respects. And we see that when we see a rise in anti-Semitism, we see a rise in a lot of forms of hate. And right now, anti-Semitism, anti-LGBTQ plus hate, anti-Black racism, anti-AAPI hate. I mean, I could go on and on. We are seeing a tremendous rise in all of that. And some of it is long before, you know, when Donald Trump was elected president, you know, a lot of it was, you know, in the underbelly, and now it is out more open. And extremists and extremist activity, people feel more emboldened, you know, in many respects. And the one thing I'll just say before I pause is we put out our audit of anti-Semitic incidents. Yesterday morning, we released our data, and the numbers were quite staggering. It averages out to about 10 incidents per day. It's about a little over 3,600 incidents nationwide. And Virginia had a 50% increase from 2021 to 2022. And that is alarming. There's close to 70 incidents that happened in 2022. And that definitely is a rough place to be in.
Well, we don't want to be winning in that category. There's no about it. And I especially with the election stuff, we saw a lot with our candidates, nooses around the necks of Josh Cole, or the body, look, you know, on the literature in the front. Dan Helmer sent also, and this was by talk about politics or partisanship. It was approved by the RNC, the Republican Party, and they had not much to kind of identify it, but it was there, and we saw it with their own candidates. So, and then, like you said, you know, we all know about Charlottesville and all that. So talking about that in your report, in Virginia, it's also very high. Is there a reason, do you think it's high? Are we in some existential battle here, or what's going on that's different from the other states? I'm wondering.
Yeah, so Virginia was about 13th in the country, so not the top 10 necessarily, still not great where it was. And the trajectory that we've seen and the way the numbers have been going, shows that forms of hate are increasing in the region. I would say Maryland happened to be number 10. So the region itself has definitely had an increase. North Carolina as well, just south of Virginia. What we've seen is this normalization of hate, a mainstreaming of it. Social media has changed the entire dynamic as well. So it's in the, it used to just be in the online square. We now say it's in the public square, and things like Charlottesville or the January 6th insurrection are kind of bookends of some of that hate, where we just see these people who are believing conspiracy theories and tropes about Jews or about other marginalized groups, and they are taking to the streets now. We see a lot of propaganda of anti-Semitic type of flyers that are blaming the Jewish people for causing COVID, as by way of example, or for controlling the slave trade. These are just awful phrases that they're using. And it's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there. And honestly, things like claiming there was a stolen election, all of that coupled together. And so Virginia is seeing some of that manifest in its community as well. I will say we've had a lot of incredible elected leaders. I've heard Loudoun County mentioned a few times. And Loudoun County had 2 major incidents last year in the fall of anti-Semitic and racist nature. And it was horrifying for us kids to see this graffiti. But the elected officials in the community came together to condemn it. And that's one of the most important things that we can continue to do in addition to education.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I mean, like you said, we've seen so much in Virginia and the DMV area. That it's shining a light on it, talking about it, trying to figure that out. Is there anything else in the report that you found to be maybe surprising besides the uptick? Was there any kind of, you said about social media, how do the smartphones, like people capturing incidents or even the use of social media, work in this space when you're talking about hate or even trying to call attention to it?
Yeah, so look, I think one of the best things that we have, the tools, in our toolbox now is, if you see something, you can say something, you can report it. You can report it directly to law enforcement, but you can report it directly to organizations like ADL. We have right on our homepage under the Take Action, how to report an incident, and we can see patterns, trends of what is happening. So there's a network of individuals, part of a group called the Goyim Defense League. GDL, that's a play on ADL essentially. And they are a network of just anti-Semitic, they're homophobic, they're anti-Black. I mean, they are just awful people, and they are spreading these flyers throughout communities. And Virginia has had a lot of them, and they show up on people's driveways in like a Ziploc bag with birdseed or rocks to weight it down. And it's conspiracy theory. And if people can send us that picture, we can figure out which communities are getting hit, the trends and that, or if you see something and, make sure you're always safe. I can't stress that enough. Do not try and interact with somebody, but you can take a video also. Any of that helps law enforcement and organizations like ADL to combat it.
Like you said, the normalization thing is really what the space where we need to combat. I'm seeing the rise of this Nazi stuff out in rural Virginia and coming to drag shows. And it's sort of like, this is very disturbing. That you're out in the broad daylight, like with your Nazi stuff going on. And that was unheard of, right? Really. And I mean, it's happened before, but it is just chilling to see it. Well, if you want to do last minute remarks, we're going to go over to the author now. It's been a pleasure to be able to speak with you. I mean, and if you want to put the full report in the chat, that would be awesome.
I believe somebody did. I saw somebody throw the link in there. The last thing I would just end on and say to you is, people always ask, what can we do as a community? And I think this is a perfect forum for that. this is a comprehensive approach to fight hate. It's a whole of society approach, right. Working together as a community, educating and training for our students, our youth. That is the best time to reach people. And that is something that we need to do more of in our community.
Yes. Well, thank you, Meredith, for being here.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And enjoy the rest of your day. I'm sure you'll be busy. Thank you. And so next up, warm welcome for Fennell Norton back up here. And I'm so excited about your conversation with the author, Margaret Edds. Come on up, Margaret. I'll get myself out of here. I'm so excited to listen to this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Margaret, I am so excited to have you here with me. For those just joining, this is Margaret Edds, the author of What the Eyes Can't See. And it is an amazing book. I am fortunate enough to have gotten through this book. But I would love for you to tell the audience why you came up with the title, What the Eyes Can't See.
Well, this book, of course, is the story of Ralph Northam and what happened after the blackface scandal, what he did to learn about systemic racism and to try to change his own life. What he often said is, as a doctor, that the eyes can't see what the brain doesn't know. So if, for instance, a medical school student, if there is a diagnosis that you don't know about, you could be looking right at it and you just don't see it. And the same is true of systemic racism. If you don't really understand that concept, then you're not going to see it, even if you're looking right at it. So that's the purpose of the title.
That is perfect. And I know they can see the cover of the book, which I think is really amazing. This was some journey that the governor went through, but it was also a journey for you too. And I would love for you just to talk a little bit about what you were thinking. And I know we talked about the noise that you heard outside your window, which really said to you, I gotta talk about this. So will you share that with the group?
Sure. Well, in June 2020, I really had no intention of writing another book. I'd written 5, and the last one that I had written about Oliver Hill and Spotswood Robinson, who were 2 civil rights icons from Virginia, worked closely with Thurgood Marshall. I worked on that for about 6 years, and I just didn't think I had another 6 years to work on a book. But the night of June 4th, 2020, which was the day that Governor Northam announced that he was going to take down the iconic Robert E. Lee statue on Monument Avenue in Richmond, we live about 6 blocks from Monument Avenue. And that night, about maybe 9:45, I started hearing a low hum, and then it grew louder, and it's like, what is this? And, a little bit of fear almost. And then all of a sudden, there was just a jubilant crowd of people who were marching by the house, just so overjoyed at what was happening. Cars honking, people chanting, yelling. And I just thought at that moment, what an amazing story, from the blackface scandal, a year and a half before that, to this moment of doing such an iconic action and all the joy that was stimulating. So that's where the book began, and it went on and grew from there.
So that is pretty amazing. And it really is, it was a tough journey here for a lot of people, especially for Black people, those who were serving in the House of Delegates and the Senate. But there's also a lot of learning here about blind spots and what people see and what they think. And I love that you were talking about, there's a certain page in the book where you sort of think about blind spots that folks have. And I would love for you to read that section of the book, because we can all think about where we might have blind spots and the things that we think about. So you want to read that? I think I'd love to hear it.
Sure. That I'll just say briefly, the book is really about 3 things, and it's in the subtitle. First is Ralph Northam and this sort of personal journey of making something good out of something bad. Secondly, it's about the Black legislators and activists who really prodded and encouraged him along the way. And thirdly, as you're just saying, it's about systemic racism. And what I most hope for the book is that it would really encourage other people to follow the Northam example and look at their own blind spots around race. So this is, Ralph Northam did a lot of work. We can talk about that if you want to, but here's one of the major things that he learned. In another unexpected way, the blackface scandal added to Northam's deepened compassion for Black lives. For years, he had prided himself on being able to say truthfully that he did not see race. A large portion of the thousands of patients he had seen over the years were children of color. Their race played no conscious role in his care. To the best of his ability and knowledge, he treated everyone the same. In January 2019, a few weeks before the blackface photos surfaced, Northam had conducted an interview on the Eastern Shore that spoke to that intention. A local communications firm was completing a video documentary about Sam Outlaw, a renowned blacksmith in Annapolis who was Black. Asked for an interview, Northam recalled visiting Mr. Outlaw's shop as a young person, bringing in a shovel or a wheelbarrow for repair. Then he turned to racial awareness. Quote, "The way we were raised, my brother and I, we didn't see color. And I don't think Mr. Outlaw saw color either. He just treated everybody as human beings. And I think it's a lesson everybody needs to hear." Alina Yarmatsky, his young office guide, had suggested at the time that he might want to rethink that statement. He had not understood why. After months of meeting with Black Virginians, studying their history, and being shown evidence of racial disparity in almost every aspect of American life, he understood. To see a shared humanity was essential, but to see no difference was to ignore the systems and the deep-seated, even unconscious personal biases that continue to oppress. To impose a veneer of sameness was to deliberately ignore the vast gaps that split Black and white Americans in almost every measure of quality of life. Once he had adjusted his focus, "Oh my Lord," he said, he saw race-based difference everywhere. "The eyes can't see what the brain doesn't know," he became fond of saying. Well, once you're educated and understand, talk to people, then racial inequity is all over the place. It's everywhere you look.
Wow. I think that's pretty powerful in terms of what happened through all of this. Talk to us about other areas of the book that you hope folks will find inspirational, or just that they'll find that, wow, I didn't think he would actually do that or go that far, or that he didn't go far enough.
Well, I would say just a word about the Black legislators and activists who encouraged him along the way. You know, there was a real mix of reaction when this happened. Many people were furious, rightly so. Others saw this as an opportunity to learn, and for Northam to learn, and for other people to learn as well. Dolores McQuinn was one of the sort of inspirational people in that vein. She's a legislator from Richmond, and she met with him and she said to him, "Take this lemon, make lemonade, make lemon bars, make lemon chess pie, do everything you can to improve the situation, because you will be able to go to places that I can't go." She also told him, "You have to be very intentional in understanding that Black skin sets people apart." You know, Northam didn't actually even know about minstrel shows, which is amazing. But what he learned from people like Doris Quinn, Jennifer McClellan, was the whole history of white people being able to dress up that way, have fun, if you will, and then wipe it off. Whereas actual Black people can't do that. They carry that badge with them always. So those are things that I hope people read. I hope they understand and think about.
Oh my goodness. I can't stress again how wonderful this book is, what a learning it is, what a lesson in education and humility it is. I am so glad that you will be staying with us in the after chat. There's two other books that I love. The one that you talked about, We Face the Dawn, and also An Expendable Man, about someone who spent 18 years in prison and almost was executed, and he was innocent. So Margaret Edds, thank you so much.
Don't
Thank
go
you for them.
Too fast. I have a question. So I know I want to also I know in the after chat, I think we're going to have a whole book group. So just prepare for that. But the one thing I want to say is the redemption story. And it'll be interesting when we do follow up with Pastor Michelle and the insights of this. But the redemption story and how we can, as a people, I think it's a great story because sometimes there's all this, like we talked about with Meredith, all this hate, all this bad things, and that we can learn and that people can change. And if we can give people the space and the grace to do that. And when your eyes are opened, it is something that's amazing in that you will never see the world the same way again, correct? I mean, for this.
I think people generally want to be part of the solution. They don't want to be part of the problem. There are exceptions to that. But for those who really would like to be part of the solution, they need to be given space for redemption, I believe.
Yeah. And then when we saw on the cover of this book, the statues coming down, and like you live that right on your street, which is pretty awesome to hear. And that's a great visual to hear the noises of the Jubilee of people coming to see this, because that whole Richmond is just a legacy to the slave state. And that he decided that he and his toward the end of his career would do everything he could to do right. And that to me is amazing part of that story. When we watch those statues go down. So thank you for recording all that. I really do say, get the book. So glad that you're able to join us, and we'll stay in the after chat so we can dig deeper. So thank you so much.
Talk to you then.
Yes. All right. So real quick, as we say, station break, quick station break. What we do every year, if we can, is the event called the Women's Summit. If you're remember that Network Nova produces a few things, and that the Power Lunch. Also, we do a lot of stuff down in the legislature and advocacy, and we like our signature Women's Summit that is organized and run by women and open to all woke as shit people. We come, all genders welcome, but we run the show and we love what we've been doing for 7 years. We welcome you guys to buy the tickets. Early bird is on sale. It's July 22nd and 23rd. And we will be reaching out for our speakers program. We have the sponsorship packet available if you would love to sponsor us. We're looking for at least 8 badasses to fill our badass table. If you're interested to be a badass sponsor, we just contact us. Go to our website and check out some of our sponsorship levels. And also, it will be at the Hilton McLean, just to say, in Tyson's Corner, for all of you ready to get a hotel room. But we really want to tackle all these big issues. And remember, in Virginia, we do want to flip it blue. This event really gets people jazzed up. And we know all the candidates are going to be excited to come. And it is a 2-day event. So we hope that you will buy your ticket today. And I feel like, workshop proposals. We're going to put that link in there too. We're looking for really good workshop proposals. If it doesn't happen at the summit, it will happen on the Power Lunch. So thank you. All right. Woo, station break. All right. Anyways, I'm so excited. And that gift just made me so happy. I'm a little dizzy though. All right. Next up, and I'm so glad to have you wrap this show up, because I know your mind is just churning. I know you well enough that you are really thinking about today's show, and also your own life that you said when we introduced you, you just experienced the graveyard you had tended to, founded, protected, and now been desecrated, and where your son is buried as well. What are your thoughts opening up on this segment, Pastor Michelle, that you will enlighten us with and wake this room up?
Hate is a new strategy. It's actually not new. It's an old strategy, but is public, and it is now acceptable to hate, and to hate as much as you can, to be as vile and profuse with it, to be able to spread it is in many corners and crevices, to take your light. Normally, hate comes with a hood. The hoods are off, and they are just walking and waltzing down the aisles in every corner. There's no street, no community, no city that is safe from this hate. And so while we have the luxury of sort of talking about this hate, there are still communities that have never had the luxury to be absolved from it. I want to bring to everybody remembrance the fact that African Americans is still the #1 hated group in America. We get accosted first. We're not popular anymore. It's more popular to talk about everybody else that's having hate problems. But I'm telling you, hate started with Black people in America, okay? From 1619 to today. And it's amazing that we have to build more coalitions in combating hate. Hate cannot be dealt with in a silo. When they come from one, they come for us all. I am tired of ringing the alarm to say they did something to me. They have not done it to me. They have done it to everybody. And until we all have that same feeling, until one, or Dr. Martin Luther King says, until we start being affected by what affects everybody else, we're all going to be left out for the haters. One of the other things that's really frustrating is the way that hate is now being weaponized and used as a political tool. It is now popular for leaders to be filled with hate. They can be unknowledgeable, but they have to be full of hate. They have less knowledge and more hate. And it's disturbing that this is now a political tool, that you have to try to be as discriminatory as possible, as oppressive as possible for groups of people in order for you to advance in your political career. It's terrible. It's terrible. We are in a crisis, another crisis in this country that is even more difficult is more difficult than the 60s, than the original civil rights movement. And the reason why I say it's much difficult, because there's a few of us who's made it to the point where we feel that we have the luxury to be apathetic. That's a problem.
Right.
That's a problem. So we won't lift our voices, Catherine. We'll see, somebody desecrating a burial ground. One of the things that really bothered me about this desecration of the burial ground was the fact that people thought that it was okay to light something of fire at the burial ground, that they would light a painting, a memorial of such that was left, set it on fire. Now, you know the history of Black folk and fire and crosses burning in our sacred places and in our homes. It was disturbing. It was disturbing. And to say somebody would say, oh, it's the wind. Wind don't like fire.
Right. No, I agree. And so with that, I really would like to go even a little, if you want to call it deeper and all that. Like you said, it's popular, this race to the bottom. And then you have a little bit more of the sneaky hater, where I call that the sneaky hater, like Youngkin, who is like, he tries to be playful about it, or different or softer. And it's almost worse. It's almost like it hurts, because it's like, what are you saying? When he came out to win this race in Virginia with the CRT, and we all were like, it seemed to me so racist. It seemed George Wallace, it was right in front of us.
Catherine, you froze.
We had healing to see if you have it. Oh. Am I back?
You're back.
I'm so sorry. I have that internet thing on rainy days. But I don't know what you heard or how much of it. But the sneakiness that we see with Youngkin, the rolling back of some of the things Ralph Northam did that were good. After all that, we struggle with in Virginia, all your work talking, and then we go backwards, restoration of rights, CRT bullshit.
So one of the things that is very difficult is because people rest. It is like, I've made this accomplishment. I've rested. I love what Biden is saying, finish the job. And that is what we have to do. I'm sorry. I love the civil rights movement. I think they did a fantastic job. It was only the beginning. Now, those of us who are living through this resurgent, we got to finish the job. Notice that education is being attacked. Why? Because education is how we educate the ignorance out of people. Education is the mechanism where we begin to open the minds of youth that will fight for laws and policies, right? And so those things are being thwarted. It's a mix of, you said it right, it's sneaky. It's a mix of conspiracy theory. It's a mix of misinformation and disinformation. And what it's doing is wearing the people out. They cannot stay in the fight longer. Who wants to be negative all the time?
Right.
Listen, even my family gets worn out. Who wants to be negative all the time? Listen, I tell them just relax. I'll go ahead and fight until I die to make sure that we all have freedom in this country. Freedom is not free. We have to continue to fight for it. We have to stay on top of every single issue. I love the author that interviewed Governor Northam, but I went and confronted him. Thank you for interviewing, but I wasn't his friend on the day that I went down there to confront him about what the governor, the highest leader in Virginia, was actually thinking and doing. And could that be a part of your medical practice, knowing the history that Black people have had with healthcare in this country? When I went to confront him, I began to peel this onion back. He wasn't racist. He was undereducated. Now that sounds crazy, because how is it that a doctor can be undereducated? But when our books don't explain the history, that don't tell the truth and authenticity around minstrel shows and around blackface and around some of the things that happened in our civil rights history, listen, he who does not know his history is destined to repeat it. And that's why we're seeing this resurgence, because there's no law on the book, there's no memory of our history, and folks don't understand what's going on, and we are worn out to the bone, and folks are just tired. They're just giving up and hoping.
Well, this, and Maurice Hawkins has a little thing in the chat. This anti-wokeness movement is code speak for bigots being openly comfortable with their bigotry, that they are, like you said, who doesn't want to be woke? Who doesn't want to be educated? I mean, that's what we want for our kids, right? But what we see is this movement to really dumb down people, like you said, because then if you don't learn your history, then you can be, go through life as a doctor and not see color, and you can be comfortable with it thinking you're fine. And that's what they're trying to do. They, get after the youth. They want to go after the youth because the youth are woke. They understand. But if you just don't give them education, Pastor Michelle, right? They're not learning it.
They can't do anything about it. What can you do? Sleep. Except for rest your brain. What can you do? Sleep. You can't do anything. Every action starts with waking up. So how do you now attack the fact that God has created us to wake up and do something? Like we do.
True.
Working in our sleep. We're resting. When we wake up and we do while we have day.
That is so true. I think we have to take that couch. Those, I was trying to, let's end up with something like, what are we going to do? I think you've just made Friday bright and given us this kind of fight again, and, just kind of keeping us in the fight with you. But I was listening to what can we do about this? And somebody was saying that we have to couch it in the moral words of Martin Luther King, that the moral, that something, though it's legal, doesn't mean it's right. So go ahead.
So what we have to do is, the emotion is what gives us gasoline to move forward in policy making. Policy making has to go hand in hand with prayer, with all of the emotion that we feel and all of this woo-woo-ness. Make policy. We need to write ordinances There has to be a draft. Right now, yes, I am still upset that they desecrated the burial ground, but I am not so upset that I have forgotten my pen. I am praying with my pen. I'm making policy. I'm writing the ordinances that will be put forth by the Board of Supervisors. I'm writing the new HB bill that I'm expecting my legislators to take in January to put forth in the Virginia House District and be passed in the Senate. We have to move from the point of being excited into the point where we're actually writing policy. People know the only reason why we have this uptick of hate nationwide is because we don't have good laws that addresses hate crimes and put it in the form of domestic terrorism. It is an act of domestic terrorism to come to a historic African-American burial ground, light a match, set things on fire, vandalize it. That is a way of there's a way of terrorizing the Black community. And it's not a new thing, but until the lion learns to write, the story will always glorify the hunter. Until the lion learns to write, the story will always glorify the hunter.
I like it. Let's end on that note. I hope you can stick around a little bit in the after chat and especially in this year moving forward, let's continue to try to work together to keep that pen writing, my friend. Thank you, Pastor Michelle. As always, I know we all feel like we've been through Sunday church, and you should, because Pastor Michelle does it best, that she really speaks from the soul. So thank you. I just love it to have her today. It was awesome. So make sure that the end of the show stuff is what we have a show next week. Next Friday, March 31st, we're going to kick off or end off our Women's History Month with a lot of House delegates. I mean, we have a list of about, I think, 15 people. I sent a note to everybody. So if you're in the room and you haven't responded, you still have time to get on the show. But we will end it with some really badass women next Friday. And so stay tuned for that. Also, make sure you support us. It's always great to make sure that we have the fuel that we need to make sure our pen keeps moving. And also just want to say thank you again to Pearl for being a great patron and a supporter of the show all the way from California. And follow us on social media. It really helps we're starting to do YouTube shorts, which are really awesome. So the guests today will probably do some shorts of them and put them out on social media to get the word out. And today there's a lot to get the word out. And making sure that we also have a postcard initiative that Fennell has started, and you can sign up at postcardsforvirginia.com. And in the after chat, if you have any questions, please ask Fennell. I want to thank you to the wonderful folks that produced this show, Robin Warner, Stare Calhoun. Hello, and she's all the way in Colorado, but be coming home soon. Heidi Dragneff, Dennis Orsinger, Michelle McKinney, Laura Martinez, and our concierge extraordinaires, Julie Galdo, Avina McKell, Sally Reynolds. Let's run credits. I'll see you on the other side. Go warm up your coffee and get a blanket. I think I need one. So thank you for being here.